And we're live. Kelsie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Of course, no problem. So we met a while ago, actually, when I was on your podcast, which was an interesting turn of events. I'm having a few podcast guests on my show now, and we're just turning the tables. And I always tell them, I'll do my best to be as good of an interviewer as you were, but we'll see where the conversation takes us. So we met
Def-
at that point, and then I think I let you know at that point as well that I really like podcasts and I really like these conversations. And we had a great conversation on ours, and we talked about doing it multiple times. And then when I was thinking about who to have on here, and I was thinking about some young entrepreneurs and some people that are crushing it, I was like, I have to have Kelsie on here. So I reached out, and you agreed to come on. So I'm really excited. I have a bunch of questions for you, and we'll just see where that takes us. But first things first, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, anybody who hasn't come across you on TikTok or anywhere else, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you currently do, anything you would need to share.
yeah, well, I'm Kelsey. You might know me as SociallyKels on TikTok and Instagram. And I kind of got started doing social media management. That's kind of initially where my following came from. I was sharing about how I do social media management and I was teaching other people how to do that as well. But it kind of has broadened out a lot now. My content's just kind of about entrepreneurship in general. I've now scaled into an agency and I kind of have this whole personal brand. So it's broadened out a lot over the last, I guess, 3 years. Yeah, it's been almost, yeah, pretty much exactly 3 years since I got started in all of this.
That's awesome. So it's become very multifaceted now. Now you have a lot of different angles, and I know you're a lot busier now too, just from our conversation. But I want to know how you got started in all of this. So you got started in this realm when you were what, 2021?
Yeah, I think I was like freshly turned 22, maybe. That's what it was. I'm trying to
Okay,
do the
so
math.
21 turning 22, and obviously that's a young age. That's an age where a lot of people are confused, thinking about school, thinking about careers, thinking about business, things of that nature. But what interests me is you're one of those individuals that actually executed on your thoughts, and you had the courage to jump into entrepreneurship and start your own thing. So what was the motivation for that, or what was your thought process in that time?
Yeah, I always kind of grew up like knowing that I was going to do something entrepreneurial. I kind of always had that, I don't know, vibe about me. I would always do like the lemonade stands and like just kind of like finding ways to hustle. And I actually wanted to be a professional dancer. That was kind of like the route I was going on. So I wasn't thinking about school, anything like that. Like all throughout high school, my friends were talking about, oh, going off to college. And I was like, nope, I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in any jobs. Like I just looked at every job and I was like, that doesn't seem like it's for me. I don't like any of them. I pick none. So I was going to be a dancer because I love dancing. And I did pursue that for a few years. And then I just kind of realized that it didn't match up with my lifestyle, like financially, having balance and security that way. Being in the entertainment industry is a little bit, I don't know. It's hard to make it. It's hard to make stable money. I wanted financial freedom. I wanted to be able to travel. I wanted to, do all of these things. So I actually tried many businesses before this one that ended up working. I tried to do like a furniture refurbishing business. I tried to do a dog mom apparel line. I was into like crypto and forex trading. Like I was trying all of these things and kind of decided that I knew I was going to make money online somehow. That was kind of the goal. I was like, okay, if I can do it online, I can travel, I can make money from anywhere, I can, make as much money as I want. That was kind of the goal. And then during COVID, I just came across a TikTok of a girl talking about social media management. And I didn't even know that was a job before. I was like, that's a job. I could do that. I love social media. I've always loved creating content. I'm just kind of creative, I guess, like growing up dancing. I loved making videos my whole life as well. I just love social media in general. So I was like, oh, that seems like a job I can do. So I was very naive going into it, which I think was an asset for me because I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't have I was overly confident basically because I
Mhm.
just thought, I know social media, we'll be fine. So I literally saw that TikTok about social media management and within 2 weeks had like registered my business name, made the accounts, like ready to go, let's do it. And just figured the only way to get clients would be to post tips for small business owners. That's the people I was trying to target that I wanted as clients was small business owners. So I had no credentials, no experience. So I thought if I just go on TikTok and start posting, hey, small business owners, this is how to grow on Instagram, that will position me as an expert. I'll get to show that I know what I'm talking about. I'll get to help these business owners. And then maybe if they wanted, extra help or to hire someone, they would think of me. And that ended up working out. I grew my following very quickly, reached a lot of business owners. I was able to get paid clients within, it wasn't like super fast, maybe like 3 months of consistent posting, but still I was, growing, and within 3 months had paying clients. And then within 6 months, quit my waitressing job that I had because I was doing this full time, and kind of was able to scale it from there.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that you saw the girl on TikTok talking, and you're just like a little bit later, 3 months later, you're the girl on TikTok and crushing
Yeah.
it there. So that's awesome. I mean, I have a lot of different questions for you because at that age, it's such a sensitive time, and people are so, just overly confused, like I said earlier, with all the information that they're receiving from external sources. But I like the fact that you had one thing in mind. I want to go into the online space, and I want to, build my own thing while I travel and have that financial freedom and time freedom. So it didn't matter which vehicle, all these different businesses that you tried, but you knew that the path is the same, right? And that was like me for sales. In sales, I always said when I was younger, I'm going to go into every different industry and I'll be there for 1 year. And I don't care what product or service I'm selling. I would jump from industry to industry, but as long as it was sales. So the common thing for me, the common thread was sales. So for you, the common thread was the online business. And I see a lot of that within a lot of people who have, reached success or pursued what they wanted to pursue. They have that common thing in mind, regardless of the vehicle. So that's really good. But then eventually you landed on that social media business and doing that because you saw the opportunity in it, and also you had some type of passion for it. What was it that made you stop there and not continue on to, experimenting with other things? Or is it that you saw success within the 3 months?
I think it was definitely that I saw some initial traction. Like, even though it took me 3 months to get clients, I saw in that 3 months how much I was like, okay, my following's kind of consistently growing. I also was enjoying it. So I think you kind of just have a feeling when you're like, okay, this is something I want to stick with. I actually really am enjoying this. In the past, compared to those other businesses that I had started, it was kind of like, this feels okay. I don't know. And it wasn't so much that, because I believe that no matter what you do, honestly, if you keep going at it, you can't really fail, because you could just keep
Mm-hmm.
going at it. It might take 10 years, but I wouldn't say my past businesses I had failed at. I kind of just thought, and it doesn't feel right, because you have to really like what you're doing to continue with it when you're not making money and it's not working. So I think it was more so that I was really enjoying it and I was excited about it. And then, yeah, seeing that success, of course, is a good motivation.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we talked about this last time too. To be an entrepreneur, you'd have to either really have a purpose around what you're doing, or you'd have to just be crazy. You'd have to be a psycho to continue to take in risk and going through the ups and downs and challenges and still do what you're doing, right? It's literally one or the other. So to have that level of success, you need longevity. You need to do it for a long time. To do it for a long time, you need to either enjoy it or have some type of purpose around it, right? So it seems like you found that, which is awesome. And then from there, that led into pretty much working with small business owners, servicing them, and establishing yourself as that expert. I think your social following continued to grow, so you had more leverage and authority. This is just me from the outside, by the way. You can
Yes,
correct me
no.
if I'm wrong. So you probably had some more leverage, and then from there, now you have some partners, and you scale that into some agencies and different things like that. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as my following kind of grew, it just started going all these different directions, because initially I had just started being like, I'm just going to be a social media manager. This is a way to make money online. I was like, if I can make a few $1,000s a month, I'm laughing. Amazing. I don't have to have a boss. I can work for myself. I can work online from anywhere. Cool. And then very quickly I started to see, okay, when my following's also growing, I never saw myself as like a content creator or an influencer. That was always my like childhood dream to be, but I never kind of thought that no one was going to care about me enough to, I don't know, be in that position. But as my following was growing, I still didn't think about it as being an influencer, because in my head, I had this like preconceived idea of an influencer is, like a beauty content and lifestyle. And I was posting pretty strictly business content. And I never thought the fact that there are businesses that would sponsor my videos that are, B2B companies, for example. So it wasn't until I got a few emails of people wanting to sponsor posts for me, I was like, oh, this is also a business. I could also be a content creator, and that's another way I can make money. So then my mind was kind of expanding on all these things I could do. And then, yeah, decided to scale it into an agency because I had enough leads to do that. And then, yeah, now I have business partners, and we're building this online kind of education company where we can teach other people how to build agencies. And it's just led to so many different things. I feel like that's every entrepreneur story, though. You start doing one thing and then all these other opportunities come at you and you're like, oh, I can do all of this stuff. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I love that you open other doors as well. And I think that's the real thing with social media. And I want to get into some social media talk as well, because obviously that's your area of expertise. And, I want to tap into your wisdom there. But, when you are on social media and you're creating content that is growing in value for you over time, it opens a lot of other doors for you, whether it's just networking, whether it's, relationships you've built that lead to, businesses, whether it's simultaneous businesses like sponsors and things of that nature. So let's talk about some of that in terms of getting on social media. Obviously, this is something you've helped a lot of small businesses with, in terms of all the logistics that go into it initially, right? So I work with a lot of small business owners as well, even sales professionals, just online professionals, whatever it might be. And I think one of the biggest challenges is people realizing what they're good at and what they're not. So, for example, am I good on camera? Am I good with just speaking and communication verbally? Am I good at writing? What platforms do I really enjoy being on or creating content on? So all these things that go into it. First question, I guess, would be, are you in the camp of it doesn't matter what you like, you have to be everywhere all at once? Or are you in the camp of you got to choose, I love TikTok and I'm only going to specialize in TikTok? How would you approach it if you're the new business owner?
I think there's a little bit of a balance. I think it is helpful to have a bit of a presence as many places as you can, but especially when you're first starting out, kind of use your strengths. If you're somebody who loves, speaking to the camera, then maybe TikTok's a good place for you, or a podcast would be a good place for you. If you're somebody who's more about writing and you like to write, blog posts, maybe you're more on like Pinterest over there. So I think definitely play to your strengths and what you're going to enjoy, because that's also going to help you to actually do it. Because when you're starting out, you're trying to make those routines, try to be consistent. So if it's something that you enjoy, you're probably going to actually do it and actually see results and enjoy it. So I think, play to your strengths and what you actually enjoy doing. And then when you're able to, just have a bit of a presence everywhere. But you can go hard into one. Like, that's kind of me. I'm way deep into TikTok. That is my kind of place that I put most of my energy to. But I'm also growing my YouTube and my Instagram, and I have a Twitter and I have a Pinterest, I have a LinkedIn and whatever. But TikTok's definitely where I put most of my energy.
So you would pretty much approach it like that. Have one or two platforms that are your main ones and
Mhm.
put most of your energy there and grow those, and
Yeah,
then build off the other platforms on top of that.
exactly. Yeah. And you can always repurpose content with all of this stuff too. I mean, I've grown my YouTube now over 8,000 subscribers just from taking my TikToks and posting them over there as shorts. So it's not like it's that much more work. You're just kind of spreading out the content.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Repurposing the content. It's something that I did as well, and it changed everything for me because it just makes life so much easier. And if you're creating, short form content like tweets and things like that nature, it can be on Twitter and Threads, and that can turn into long form content into, LinkedIn posts, Facebook posts, articles, blogs, vice versa. Videos can be everywhere, short clips, all that, like you said. So when you started, or let's say you're talking to a new business owner who's starting on any of these social platforms, what would you recommend in terms of approaching building their brand, in terms of maybe posting frequency, in terms of maybe the type of content to create, or how to find their message or their voice? What are some things, just general advice you would give in terms of the social branding approach?
Yeah, I think you have to really come at it I always say, like, post selfless content. You have to really think about who exactly is my audience. Hopefully, as a business, you already know that who your target audience is, and really have them in mind for every single piece of content. Like, be so intentional when you're posting something. Is my target audience going to learn from this? Are they going to be entertained by this? Are they going to relate to this? Am I speaking to their pain points? Like, you really want to have that perspective on it when you're creating content. I think a lot of business owners can get really caught up in, okay, how am I presenting my product? How am I presenting my service? And like, coming at it so about like how it looks and I don't know, all of those kind of things, when really what matters is how is your audience feeling when they see this. So coming at it from a very selfless content, I don't know, perspective. Um,
Mhm.
in terms of frequency too, something that I always say is post as much as you can. Obviously, the more that you're going to post, the more you're going to have a chance at reaching people. But you also want to be consistent. So if it's realistic for you, if you can pump out 2 posts a day, amazing. If you could do that consistently for, a long period of time. If you're busy and you're a business owner and you have kids and you're running around and you're like, I cannot post every single day, that's okay. Post 3 times a week. It's so much better to post 3 times a week in, long term than to post 10 times a day for a week and then be so burnt out, have no ideas, and not post for a month and have to basically start all over again. So whatever's realistic to you to be consistent with, is what I would suggest for how often you should be posting.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I love that you talked about how the audience feels or how the target market feels. I was on a call once and with a couple of pretty high level entrepreneurs. And one of them said, you're never competing with your competitors. You're always competing with your prospects' last great experience. So
Mm,
it's all about the customer experience. Whatever their last great experience was with a product or service like yours, that's what you're competing with. So as long as you can prioritize that customer experience throughout the entire journey. Now, we're talking about sales and business, but throughout their entire buying journey, then you're doing a great job of distinguishing yourself from the competitors. But it's the same thing for social media, from what I'm understanding from you. As long as you can deliver that experience and how they feel when they're looking at your content, I think you're going to separate yourself from everybody else. And that's very multifaceted. Obviously, how they feel looking at your content could have to do with your copywriting, could have to do with your
mm,
pictures, could have to do with your overall message. So I think rule of thumb would be to just figure all of that out and gain that clarity and then execute on that. But
yeah.
of course, execute as soon as possible, just like you did. You said something like you had the idea and registered the business and everything within 2 weeks, right?
Yes. Yeah, you have to take action. That's like so many people get kind of paralyzed in that deciding and figuring out and whatever learning, which is important, but you can't get stuck there. Got to take action.
What do you think it is that gets people stuck? Because I've experienced this myself. I'm sure you have. Being in business, being in sales for a long time, there are periods where you get stuck or feel stuck or just burn out or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But what do you think the leading causes of that are from what you see?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two different almost feelings of this. Sometimes, yeah, in entrepreneurship, you get a little bit stuck. I've definitely had those moments where you're kind of like, I don't know how to move forward. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. I'm feeling maybe just, yeah, burnt out or uncreative. I think in those moments, it's okay to actually like take a step back and, let yourself, don't like force things because that's, I find to be really hard when I'm trying, for example, if I'm trying to make content and I can't think of an idea. If I try to force it and I'm like, I have to make a video today, it's not going to happen or the content's going to be really bad. So it's okay to like take a breath. Let's try again tomorrow. In those moments, I think it's okay to take a bit of a step back. Where I think it's not really okay is when people get like they know what the next step is, they're just not doing it. They're like, okay, I know I need to make my Instagram account, but maybe first I need to figure out exactly what my username should be and what should my profile picture be. Okay, I'm going to spend a month figuring that out. Like you're just kind of procrastinating on purpose out of probably fear. It's scary to start something new. You don't know what's going to happen, but people just or they feel like they don't know enough yet. I think that's one I hear a lot. They're like, I need to learn more first. And I'm a big just do it and learn as you go because you're going to learn the most as you go, anyways. You can read a textbook about starting a business, you can read it over and over and over. You're actually going to learn the most from just doing it. Like you're never going to know everything. You're never going to be totally prepared. And you can be as prepared as possible. And you're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to have challenges. So you might as well just start and get those almost over with and just start. So I think that's why I was able to have pretty good success quickly is because I did just jump right into it and I learned as I went and I could get those mistakes out of the way quickly versus trying to be totally and completely prepared and then take my next step. Because yeah, it's just you're gonna learn when you go anyway.
Yeah. So the advice for anybody really procrastinating, even though they know what they should do, is to just do it. To just basically,
Yeah,
don't look for perfection, just look for progress and just take that first step. And you're
yeah,
totally right. I've had times where I, launched a website or, clicked publish on a funnel by accident. And then I was like, oh shoot, I gotta go, now figure this out. And then I was like, instead of taking it down, might as well just let it roll now. And
yeah.
then I've gone through with things like that, and every time it's been like really good. And I was thankful that I just did it sooner than later when I thought it wasn't even perfect yet. And it's never perfect. You always look back, and I'm sure you would agree. I look back on some of my, whether it's course platforms or websites or things that I've done, trainings that I've done, calls that I've been on, whatever it is. And it's literally, hilarious to me because I look ridiculous or like the content or the website looks so clunky or whatever it is, right? So
Mm,
as you go, you have iterations, you recreate things, you get better, you progress. So it just
mhm.
is what it is. It's part of the game.
It
But
is.
that does hold a lot of people back, right? Looking for perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. That's just making me think back on even not even that long ago, maybe like a year ago. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, the course platform I used to use, it was just the messiest thing. I don't know what I was doing. My old content, even where at the time I was like, this is a good piece of content. I'm proud of this. And I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've just improved
Yeah.
so much when I already thought I was doing good. So no matter what, yeah, you're going to progress and get better. Just have to take that kind of messy action. Because even though, like, for example, yeah, maybe we put out a course a few years ago that we now look at, I'm like, oh my gosh, but that course did help a lot of people. I got lots of great reviews from it. I made a lot of money from it. So if I hadn't put it out because it wasn't perfect, I wouldn't have helped all those people. I wouldn't have progressed in my business. So that's just an example of, and even, yeah, when you're accidentally clicking publish on your website that's not ready and then it ends up doing well, you're like, oh, why was I holding back? It's okay
Mhm.
that it's not perfect. It's still going to help
Yeah,
people. It's still going to
exactly.
progress.
Exactly. I think as humans and especially as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're just very stubborn. So we have to be shown something or proven something to then be like, okay, you know what? This was the better thing. I should have just gone ahead with it.
Mhm.
But you're absolutely right. You know, those courses, those platforms, those websites, whatever it is that at that time impacted people and actually did something for people and for yourself, it was the right thing for that time. And you should be growing and you should be looking back, not recognizing yourself. That's really the metric. You know, at this point, I feel like I look back on myself, you know, a week ago or a month ago, and it's almost unrecognizable. So I feel like that's how it should be. If you're pursuing lifelong learning, if you're pursuing constantly getting better, a year ago is a very long time when you're always active, right? So 3 months ago, 6 months ago, even a month ago, even things you were thinking a week ago, your ideas might change. So that's just how it is. But you know, for a lot of people, it's difficult to take that leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that and see your ideas on kind of, you know, what's holding back a lot of entrepreneurs and, you know, what's stopping them. But from your perspective, what do you see as maybe some of the challenges of business owners you've worked with, maybe some things that they've struggled with, and how did you go about handling that? What were some of the most common things that maybe some of the audience could get benefit from as well?
Yeah, with business owners, I feel like the biggest challenge I see is almost they're stuck in their little world of their business and their perception of their business. And we can relate to that too as business owners ourselves. You get so just in this bubble and your business is everything you're focusing on, and you kind of forget that there's another perspective outside of it. Kind of going along with what I was talking about with the content too, where there's sometimes these holes that they're missing, and it's like, oh, because you're not seeing from the outside. So it's so helpful to work with outside people where, like, as a social media manager, I often come in and I'm like, oh, you're not communicating this on your social media, and they feel like, oh, I feel like that's obvious and everyone knows that. I'm like, no, you know that because you're the business owner and you know your business so well. And I'm totally guilty of this too in my own content. And I have other people telling me, oh, you never post about that. That's such a good thing to post about. And I'm feeling like, I thought everyone already knew that. I thought that was an obvious thing that I always talk about. And that's not how it comes across. So I think it's just good to have that like outside perspective to, I don't know, just see the bigger picture. Sometimes with your business you can get so stuck in these things and something's not working, like, why am I not converting sales? This doesn't make sense. I'm always talking about my product. And then from the
Mhm.
outside it's like, oh, but I'm not even sure how to use your product. You haven't even talked about how to use it, so I don't know if this is for me. So just little holes like that where it's nice to talk to like an outside person.
Right. And do you find a lot of entrepreneurs are thinking too small or, you know, limiting themselves too much?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's something that everyone probably struggles with at some point, that, you know, imposter syndrome. And especially lately, I've been talking to a lot of people that are wanting to start businesses and they're thinking, oh, it's so oversaturated because everybody, like, for example, a jewelry business. I can't start a jewelry business. There's so many, it's so oversaturated. Everyone has a jewelry business. I'm like, no, you think that everyone has a jewelry business because you're interested in jewelry businesses. So your
Mhm.
algorithm, when you go on TikTok, you're seeing jewelry businesses. I
Right.
never have a jewelry business come up on my TikTok. I never see
Yeah,
that.
me neither.
So
Yeah.
it's like your world shrinks when you're on social media because you just think everyone's like you because the algorithm's showing you different versions of you and all the things that you're interested in. So your world becomes so small when really it's like, no, it's not oversaturated. It's just all you see. So I think it shrinks your world, it shrinks your mind, and it causes you to kind of, yeah, question yourself when really there's just room for everyone.
That's a really good one. Your world shrinks when you're on social media. I love that. I have to write that one down.
Yeah.
That was a piece of wisdom that you just dropped. That's awesome. It's so
Yeah.
true because all of our social platforms are geared towards what we like and what we engage with. So it becomes just that echo chamber of, you know, just all the things that we feed into,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, that's a really good point. And that is something that I see with a lot of entrepreneurs as well, which is why I asked you. Just thinking too small, limiting themselves too much, and just again, the classic saying of being your own worst enemy is
Mhm.
very much true for all of us in every area of life, with our health, with our relationships, with our businesses. But yeah, it's no different when it comes to entrepreneurship. Question that I had for you, because this is something that comes up all the time for me, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, because I feel like we come at this from the two opposing sides, right? I'm coming at it from the sales background and the sales world. You're coming at it from the social media background. What should be the, I guess, allocation or percentage of selling on social versus adding value, or CTAs, like call to actions? DM me the word this to talk about this, or to book a call, click here to buy this product, whatever it might be. So call to actions versus strictly value posts. This is more of a selfish question for myself, but I'm sure there's somebody out there who's gonna get value from this too.
No, that's such a good question. It definitely depends on the platform. I find Instagram, you can definitely have those call to actions more often, especially in your stories and stuff. People are just typically a little bit more engaged and a little bit more willing to be sold to, I guess, on Instagram. If you think about the psychology of when people are on apps, on TikTok, you can barely do any like direct call to actions. I feel like people are just like, lack of better words, people are a little bit more entitled maybe when they're on TikTok to like, oh, I just want information, I just want to be entertained, don't sell to me. I don't, and TikTok doesn't want you to direct people off the app anyway. So thinking about the different platforms, but I think a good kind of rule of thumb that I go off of is for every like direct kind of like sales driven post, I'll post 2 value posts. So that's just kind of to make sure that I'm still nurturing my audience, still giving a lot of value. And a lot of that value content ends up naturally converting anyway. You don't always have to make it so direct sales anyways, especially on TikTok. But you can definitely be a little bit more direct on Instagram. I find I see like better conversions over there versus TikTok. People are just on there to have a good time.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of younger audiences as well, and they're not necessarily resonating with, click on this to, book a call or whatever it might be. They're not trying to get on a call with you, so it really depends on the audience as well. But that's a good point. That's a good way to kind of distinguish the two. And, you know, when I'm looking at these different platforms, you tell me your thoughts, but it seems like some of them are a lot more, bot heavy, or it feels like you're not really interacting with real people. Seems like some of them are, a lot more real. I don't know exactly what to take from it, because when Elon Musk was buying Twitter, and he was almost backing out of the deal, and he was saying there's a huge percentage of Twitter users that are bots, and then he said I think 20%, or they said 20%. I'm not sure, but there were some numbers being thrown around, and it's been known that that happens on different platforms, right? It happens on
Yeah.
Facebook and things like that. On TikTok, on one hand, I see a lot of younger people in my own circle. I have a younger sister as well. She's always on there, does all her research on TikTok, right? So I'm sure it's being used. I'm sure it's the prevalent kind of app that's top of mind right now. But at the same time, anytime myself or my team is on there, it feels like we're talking to bots, or it feels like all these accounts don't have profile pictures or display
Yeah.
names or whatever it is. So do you have any thoughts on that, or any takes on that, especially because you specialized in TikTok and that's where you really built your audience? How do you combat some of that, especially when you're choosing what platforms to really specialize in?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like TikTok can sometimes feel like you're just talking to the wall a little bit, where you don't always feel like on Instagram you can post and you really feel like it's an interaction and you're connecting with people. I do find on TikTok a lot of people are just more anonymous. I don't know, it also could be bots, but I think in general a lot of people are on TikTok just to consume content and they've never posted. Like I think that's probably
Mhm.
one of the platforms that mainly I think maybe more people haven't posted. Like they're just going on there to consume content. So when they comment, for example, they feel a little bit more anonymous. So you might see a lot of spammy or even like hate comments or trolls on TikTok because they feel anonymous. You can't really find out who they are. On Instagram, Facebook, you people have like identities there where they've been on it for 10 years and they have this whole profile and you can see their whole life. So I feel like people are a little bit less likely to have bot like behavior or trolls, and more likely to actually engage with your content. Where TikTok, it's just a different kind of thing. So I do feel like there's a lack of connection sometimes on TikTok. It's good for like getting awareness and reaching a lot of people, but then you almost want to drive them over to Instagram where you can make better connections. Like I see most of my conversions actually on Instagram because I feel like that's where you can go and make the actual connections. So yeah, the bots are, it's tough. but they're just
Yeah,
out there.
it feels like TikTok's almost like a mini YouTube, right? A lot of people are on it and using it, but they're consuming video. They're strictly
Exactly.
consuming information as opposed to actually posting or being active. Most people, don't have a YouTube channel and aren't posting content on YouTube. But pretty much everybody uses YouTube as TV nowadays, right?
Mhm.
So it feels like it's almost like that. And I'm pretty sure I read or heard a statistic way back when TikTok was really taking off that it surpassed YouTube in video uploads, and it was the only platform in a very long time, something along those lines. It was a
Mhm.
ridiculous number of daily uploads. And I think that's why Google and YouTube and the company was, getting nervous looking at that. And they introduced YouTube Shorts and everything else and the IG Reels, and they're all competing, which is good for the end consumer, right? It's good for the creators in this creator economy. For us, the more opportunity that there is, and now Elon with Twitter or X is rolling out the subscriptions and the creative content. You can upload long form content on there, which I haven't experimented with yet. You tell me if you have, but I would love to experiment uploading these long form podcasts right onto the actual Twitter platform, because it seems like they're heavily rewarding that. So
Mhm.
it's definitely the creator economy. It's definitely there for us. But really quick, going back to sales versus value content, I wanted just to say I definitely agree with you. And I feel like in a world where everybody's Instagram bio or TikTok or Twitter, whatever platform, says, I do this, I help these people do this or whatever, it just seems so canned and fake. At least to me, a lot of my own friends have that in their bios, and a couple of pretty high level guys in the online space that I've connected with or that I know do the same thing. And they basically just say, when I tell them this, they basically just say, listen, man, it works. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. And, I hear you, but at the same time, it's such a short sighted approach for me. And it kind of boxes you into the online person, right? As opposed to just a business person, as opposed to an entrepreneur, as opposed to just playing a bigger game. So I feel like in a world where it's all call to actions, it's all sales related things, and this is coming from a guy with a heavy sales background, right? I feel like in that world, it's better to distinguish yourself and just genuinely bring value. Try to be more authentic, less, structured, and less just playing to the old stereotypes. And I think that's going to separate you a lot more and do better long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially as time goes on and social media matures, people just consume content differently and they want value from you, and that's how they're going to connect with you more. No one wants to see a commercial over and over. They actually connect more with you just being, yeah, a normal person. Like that's what I found with my TikTok now has expanded so much to what it used to be. It's a lot more personal now. I share so much of my life, not even always related to business, because then that just, building that more personal brand and having a connection with people is so valuable, because then you can do anything and I could launch any business, and I'm sure I would have at least some of my audience be interested in that, because they're just now like, we almost have a connection, not just because of, oh, what my offer is, what my course is, whatever. It's a little bit more of a actual personal brand that you're building, and you're giving real value in all types of ways. And that's the most powerful thing you can have. I think in the creator economy, you look at the most powerful creators, like, like the Kardashians, for example, like Alex Earl. They're not going on there and selling you something every day. They're just connecting with you and giving you whatever value. If that's entertainment, if that's sharing things that you can relate to, then you just have this almost feeling of connection with this person. And if they put something out and they have some sort of call to action every little while, you're going to trust that person to go
Mm-hmm.
buy something or work with them. So I think the building of the personal brand is the new way.
Yeah, those are so many good points you just made. One, looking at some bigger players, like we were talking about Kardashians, obviously in the online space and in their businesses, they're very big players. And you'll realize they don't behave like that on social media. They're not constantly doing call to actions. I haven't looked at their pages and I don't follow any of them, but I would assume if you go on Kim Kardashian's Instagram or whatever, it doesn't say, I help girls,
Yeah.
find their ideal makeup, whatever, right? Whatever that statement would be. So that's a really good point, looking at some bigger players and thinking a little bit bigger. And also the trust factor. It's so important in sales, right? Because if you lose trust, it's over. You lost a deal, you lost that person's relationship for life, you lost them in your network. Trust is pretty much everything. It's the biggest thing that, all companies build their reputation on. So if you're constantly, it's the boy who cried wolf, right? If you're constantly asking for something or pitching something, then the trust just isn't there. And if you really come out with something great, people aren't going to jump on that, because it's going to feel like, okay, well, you pitch something every other day. And you see that happen, right? I've
Yeah.
seen so many examples of that where, somebody says something all the time. For example, this is an example that I actually, somebody I respect and something I really love, but it's a perfect example of this. You know who Dana White is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dana White, UFC, right? So he's the president. He's the best freaking sales guy I've ever seen, right? He sells the hell out of all these fights. He's so good at promoting. He's, probably the best promoter that's currently living. And he essentially built up the sport of MMA and really popularized it and built it into UFC. And now they just actually went public under the ticker, I think it's called TKO, merging with WWE. And now it's a huge, just huge company, right? But one thing that he does is if you watch when he's selling a pay-per-view card, it's always the same kind of pitch. This is going to be the craziest pay-per-view fight ever. This guy's undefeated. This guy's that. This is one of the best fights I've seen in history. This is one of the best, stand-up matchups I've seen. And he's always just, but it's the same thing. And then after, if you tune into it, and for a while, I was a big UFC fan for a few years and I was watching it. Nowadays, I just don't have the time for it. But still love the guy, and as a businessman, he's just as he says, he's a savage. Those are his words, which is great in today's world. But when I was watching that for a while, I had to just, at some point I became desensitized to it because he was overly selling every single card. So it wasn't like I never really knew when he means it, right? So I feel like that's just an example that popped into my head. It's the same thing with your business. If you're on social media and constantly pitching yourself, at some point, besides coming off annoying, or besides people not getting value from you and choosing to unfollow, whatever it is, you're just going to come off as, you're just going to desensitize people, and you're going to come off as not trustworthy, right? So that's a really good point you brought up. Now, I'm just thinking, if I'm in your shoes right now, looking at this whole social landscape, just looking at the future, looking at everything happening, with AI, with, podcasts and long form content becoming a lot more popular, just the direction that everything's heading. Just tell me, from your point of view, what does it look like? What do you see in this landscape? What interests you? What's really, just something that you want to pursue maybe? What do you see some opportunity in long term when you're looking ahead?
Yeah, it's funny timing. Yesterday, we literally, my business partners and I had a few hours meeting just about content strategy, like social media. What are we doing? Like, we've just launched this new thing. So we're like, what is the plan here? Are we just going to post TikToks? That's what always worked in the past, but we want to do something that's, going to like for sure have longevity, is going to make sense. And I think our big focus, honestly, is YouTube. I think that's kind of what we settled on. We're going to really go hard on long form content on YouTube because it's really the perfect package. Even something like this, a podcast episode, we now have a long form piece of content you could post on YouTube. You could also chop it up and put it onto all these other platforms and even YouTube Shorts. So I think that's kind of like the main medium that makes sense to put all your effort in, because YouTube has proved over so long that it's the best platform longevity wise. Like, TikTok's my personal favorite. I'm biased. I just love TikTok. I love short form content. It's so new. If you look at it, like, TikTok's been around for like really 4 years. That's so short. YouTube's probably like 20 years. Got to be close to that. It's still such a good platform, and you can use that content to put in other places. So I think, and you're even seeing TikTok trying to push the longer form content. I think as social media and content continues to kind of replace TV almost, like, we need to keep entertaining and giving people value. And our attention spans got so short with TikTok and everything. I think we're now kind of craving that longer form, I don't know, more value based. I think that's what it will always come back to, is the longer form, I don't know, just being able to entertain and give value as much as you can. So personally, I'm diving in on YouTube because I think it just kind of it's like a security where you're like, okay, if I have a foundation on YouTube, I'm pretty solid, and you can always take that content and chop it up to other places.
Mm-hmm. I love that. There you have it, kids. The pendulum is swinging. We're back
Yes.
to long form. Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome. What's funny that you talked about YouTube? I've had a few other guests on the podcast just recently, and they've pretty much all said the same thing. They're pretty much all doubling down on YouTube. One of my guests actually is a great guy as well, Craig, and he's doing really well on Twitter. That's his main platform, just like TikTok for you. For him, it's Twitter. And he loves that type of content. But what he's realizing, and from private conversation and also on the podcast, he mentioned it, what he's realizing is he's writing, an amazing thread and, putting together some amazing content on Twitter. And then after a while, it goes away. It gets buried, right?
Yeah.
And then it's no longer really discoverable. It's not the same as YouTube and everything else, where that video is always there based on different search terms and whatnot. You're always, it's always growing. It's always bringing value to your brand and bringing value to whoever's watching that. So he was saying, all that effort, it makes more sense to pivot into YouTube and have that content grow for you over time and work for you long term. So it's really interesting. I'm hearing a lot of that, and it makes sense. The giant that Alphabet is, and YouTube and the companies that are associated with it. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, right?
Yeah.
Just
and the
like
monetization too. There's such good monetization opportunities on YouTube compared to these other platforms where creators get screwed a little bit. So that's also such an attractive thing about YouTube, and creators are going to want to go there and get, compensated the way that they should compared to these other platforms.
Yeah, there really is. And I think the only other platform is X, or Twitter formerly,
Yeah.
who's now starting to add some monetization options. And I think, knowing Elon, not that I know him personally, but knowing him from afar, I plan to read his biography, by the way. I don't know if you saw that came out.
Oh,
The
really?
same guy, I forget his name, who did the biographies of Steve Jobs, I think Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo, one of those guys. But he did a few really well-written documentaries, or sorry, biographies. And he just wrote Elon Musk's, and he spent a lot of time with him in private, in
I'm
meetings and all that.
for sure reading it.
Yeah, so he just published it, so you can check it out. That the author has been doing a couple different podcasts as well, just talking about it. Elon recently talked about it because there was some funny stuff in there with him and Bill Gates going back and forth, and the whole tension there. So yeah, definitely check that out. But just looking at that stuff and seeing him from the outside, it seems like he's the type of guy that's going to back up his word and actually have the courage to go challenge a YouTube or a lot of these other platforms.
Oh,
so
for sure.
That's an interesting place to keep an eye on as well. I don't know if you guys talked about that in your meeting with your team, but I feel like
actually Twitter was one that came up too. I've been hearing a lot about Twitter ads lately have been performing really well, and they're starting to do those monetization things. So that's another one too. We figured we'll probably repurpose all the content onto Twitter and see what happens, or like try running some ads and see what happens. Because I was seeing on Twitter at such amazing not conversions, but leads people were getting from Twitter ads. So many people viewing it, like it was crazy. But I'm curious to see the conversion, because as we were talking even about bots, I'm like, are these real people that it's just so many people that you're getting from these ads? So are they real high quality people? Are they bots? So I'm curious to try it for myself.
Yeah, you always have to see based on the product or service, based on your account and the content you're putting out there and the presence you have on that platform, how it converts for you.
Yeah,
because it really depends, based on the product and service as well. But yeah, the cost of acquisition is a lot lower on Twitter. And myself and a few clients I work with have been using it, and it's definitely a great platform in that sense. But again, like other platforms, it's a bit harder to build up at first and get noticed and build that community. It's very much community oriented and conversation oriented, and being involved. So it takes that effort. But like anything else, any platform you commit to that you want to build a presence on, it should take effort, right? It should be earned. It's not just going to be given to you. You're not just going to hop on and, all of a sudden you're a celebrity on that platform. So that makes sense. I want to finish this with a question that I ask everybody. And in this case, I'm pretty sure you're the youngest person I've had on the podcast so far. So there we go. First female entrepreneur on the podcast, and the youngest person on the podcast. So round of applause to you. Definitely got the 2 awards. And I'm sure we'll have you back on and we'll discuss a lot more as you're going through your ventures and, experiencing more. We'll talk about so much more that we can still jump into. But this is a question that I used to ask. And I told myself that I'm not going to explain this on every podcast, but I always feel like I kind of have to give you the background. I used to ask this when I was younger. I was, 17, 18, 19. And I was going to business conferences, and I would try to get into the rooms with all the speakers. And every time I got in front of one of them, I would ask them based on what age I was, I would just substitute that number. But I would say, knowing everything you know today, if you could give one piece of advice to your blank, your old self, what would that be? And I got all kinds of interesting answers, some good, some bad. It is what it is. I just took it all and tried to apply it. And now it's a question that I really want to ask everybody that I speak to. So even though you're young still, but you've had a lot of experiences in business. So in business, you're mature. Knowing everything you know today, if you could go back to yourself when you were just starting, what would be one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Ooh, I think it would be honestly to network more. off the bat. I think I put that off for a long time, and I kind of isolated myself in the industry that I'm in, and I saw everyone around me who was doing something similar as competitors, and they're now actually my closest friends, because after like a year of kind of seeing these people, and I was like, oh, these are my competitors. It's actually your community. It's not like, yes, you have competitors, but when you realize how different every business is, like other creators who are posting similar content to me or talking about social media marketing ended up not being my competitors at all. Our offers end up being completely different. We specialize in different industries. Like, we are not competitors, we're actually community, and we help each other so much, and you learn so much about how much should I be charging for a brand deal? Have you worked with this client before? Like, it ends up being like your peers. And I was so isolated for so long in the first like even year and a half of my business. And the moment that I started actually reaching out and networking and making peers in the industry, that's what really took my business off. So I think I would, yeah, be more open to the networking aspect.
You definitely proved me right on being mature in business, because this is something that took me a long time to learn. I was always so ultra competitive that I thought everybody's, my enemy. If you're
Yeah.
not, with me and part of my team, you're basically the enemy. But then I realized, as you collaborate with more people, as you get in front of their audience, they get in front of your audience, as you network, you have a lot of friends in the industry, everybody wins more. You actually
Mhm.
open yourself up to more opportunities, and everybody can win at that higher level. Right? As long as obviously they're good people as well, and you can allow them into your circle, collaboration and networking can go a long way. So thank you for sharing that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Kelsie, thank you so much for being here today. I think everybody got a ton of value from that. I asked you a couple selfish questions as well, so I got some value from it too. And I definitely want to have you back on more and more. Like I always tell everybody, if I enjoyed this conversation, I plan on doing this for the long term. So we'll definitely have you back on, and we'll dive into a bunch more business topics. But thanks for your time today.
Awesome. I'm excited to come back. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.